The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Tasty Minstrel Games, Arcane Wonders, Game Toppers, the Space-Time Continuum, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes review the Gaia project from Z-Man Games. They'll also take a look back at the Dukes' reviews of Anachrony and Star Wars Destiny in their Dukes Quadruple Take, and then they'll talk about what we should really call that big old stack of unplayed games. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And this is episode 174, which we're calling Mother Earth, Father Time. That episode title, thanks to Jesse Metcalf over on our Board Game Geek Guild. We're guild number 2008. I think the title makes perfect sense, Alex, since we're talking about Gaia Project and looking back at Anachrony, Mother Earth, Father Time, right?
Yeah, no, perfect. Nailed it. Right on the head, Jesse. Good job.
Excellent, excellent work. So yeah, we get help every week naming episodes over in our Board Game Geek Guild. We put up, not every week, sorry, every other week.
Uh-oh.
Old habit. But no, every other week we have a Dukes on Deck where we're going to talk about the topics, the discussion topic and the featured review and things like that. So people can weigh in on those as they see fit. And we name all the episodes with everyone's help. So at the end, we'll give you the rest of the naming top sixes.
Can I give us a pat on the back, Sean? I want to give us a pat on the back.
Okay, sure.
Because anytime there has been a Star Wars suggestion of a name title, we have incorporated Star Wars in some form or fashion into the episode name, and we have avoided that temptation this time. And for that, I think we both deserve congratulations, but especially you.
Okay, let's give ourselves a round of applause. Here we go. Yeah. We're the what?
Anyway. Hey, Sean, how are you?
Oh boy, how am I, Alex? It's been pretty crazy around here. Obviously, we were kind of dealing with some family stuff, which we talked about in the last episode or the episode before. I don't even remember at this point. Then we were out of our house for about a week. For about a week, we had a gas leak, and we were in a hotel. We still had access to Raquel's mom's apartment, so we wound up there as well, which was its own sort of weirdness. So that was pretty crazy. Gaming, there was not much gaming that week. And then, I don't quite remember how much this got discussed. I know we kind of discussed it, but I think in past episodes I may have edited it out. Basically, this last week, my other attorney at the law firm, she had put in her notice, and this a week ago was her last day. And so it's been the Sean Ramirez solo law firm for a little bit. And set tomorrow, I'm actually set to completely take over, like buy out the actual partner. So that's interesting. It's interesting times here in the Duchy, so to speak.
Sean has done a hostile takeover, area control maximized. He's gotten all the side points.
Yeah. So
it's exciting news. It's obviously you're very busy as a result of that.
I'm incredibly busy setting up the new LLC, getting like the malpractice insurance and all the utilities transferred over and everything. I mean, I've been meeting with clients pretty much nonstop for the last 3 weeks, kind of explaining to them the transition and everything. It's been really, really crazy. So yeah. But that's how I've been, Alex. How about yourself?
I've been fine. Nothing quite that dramatic or intense.
Lucky you. Lucky you.
I'm gonna be in Atlanta next week for Proto ATL. I'm seeing the McElroy brothers. Mabim Bam is coming to St. Louis, so I'm excited about that. In terms of stuff that's actually been happening, I don't know. Tabletop Day happened. I did some stuff for that, which probably talk about in a little bit. But no, not much to report. Not much other news. Things are actually reasonably stable in this end of things, which is a role reversal, because I'm usually the unstable one.
Oh, there you go. Well,
yeah. Any case,
it is what it is. Well,
I hear you.
Shall we talk about some board games?
We shall. I'll go first, if that's cool.
Yeah.
So for Fireball Island, the Kickstarter campaign, which we had covered in speaking with Mr. Rob Davio in the last episode, J.R. Honeycutt, one of the developers of this game, was coming through on a big old road trip, cross-country road trip with the one, I think, multi-$1,000 copy, prototype copy of Fireball Island that they were trying out in different game stores. And sure enough, they came to St. Louis. They came to Pieces, which is our big board game cafe here in town. And I got to tell you, Sean, this may not surprise you, the amount of clamoring there was, the sheer desire of folks to play this game was pretty intense.
Like elbows in each other's sides? Like they're just like jostling to get in there?
Like there was a wait list for this game, and there may have been some shenanigans on the wait list after I signed up. So I when I signed up, I was number 20 on the wait list, and they just started playing.
Whoa. A Duke was number 20 on the wait list?
Hey, JR at one point tried to help me jump the line, and I said, no, I have honor, and I will wait my turn.
We are two very different people, Alex.
The way they were doing this, because of that demand, because there's only one copy, is you would play 3 full rounds, and that was it. Whoever had the most points after 3 full rounds wins the game. So about 15 minutes per group is how they did this, just to get as many folks to try this as possible. At one point, the list goes, 24 is at the bottom of the page, and then it goes to the next column. And one person did 25, 26, 27 up to at the top. Another person did 25, 26, 27 in the middle, and there's a big gap in between, and each of them has an arrow pointing to theirs. So I don't know what happened there, but there were some waitlist shenanigans. Anyway, about the game itself, which has been wildly successful on Kickstarter, this is really cool, Sean. The table presence, as you would imagine of this, is awesome. It's several plastic inserts that kind of stick into each other and then build up into an island, at the top of which is Volkar, who spits marbles at your adventurers and tries to knock them down. At its core, the game is I don't know, action selection is not the right word, because you basically have 2 cards in hand and you pick one of them to do. And that card gives you some amount of movement. So instead of rolling dice, you're playing a card. In addition to that, you'll also do something like turn Volkar's head, or turn some of the trees, or flick a tiger. We were playing with the Crouching Tiger Hidden Bees expansion as part of this. And with the tiger, you flick the back of it and try and knock it onto the island and knock someone over. Nailed it first shot. I was super good at that. But that's the gist of it. You're picking one card, playing it, doing its effect. Ultimately, your goal is to run around this island and collect either treasures, or the Heart of Volkar, which is worth a bunch of points, or go to these photo spots at different points around the island. And if you collect all 3 photo spots, you can then head back to the helicopter and escape. Alternately, the game could end, or the end game could be triggered if Volkar gets super mad at you and says, "Get off my island," and then tries to smoke you out. So this is cool. It's fun. It's simple. Everyone who was playing it seemed to really dig it. It's, I think, going to scratch a nostalgia itch for a lot of people, and for those it doesn't, this is going to be the kind of game that's, I think, quick enough, but with enough of a table presence that it's going to serve that kind of little more than a filler, but nice palate cleanser. Nice palate cleanser for a lot of people.
Okay.
And it's just fun. It's just downright fun, Sean. I mean, when you're sending these marbles down and trying to knock people over, and this sort of, oh, is it going to make it? Is it going to make it? Oh, it didn't quite get there. Or the thing knocking over a bridge that a character's standing on, or launching the tiger. There's just so much. There's fun. The core of this game is soaked in fun to me. And I think it's going to be very successful, based on what I saw from this prototype. And obviously, I think a lot of people agree, because you can see just how well that Kickstarter is doing. So that's Fireball Island from Restoration Games. Excited for when it actually comes out, but got a chance to play it.
Very cool. So, we had International Tabletop Day yesterday. I don't have any new plays from that. I got to play 2 old favorites. I got to play some Twilight Imperium 4. This is the second time I got to play TI4. Everyone at the table thought I was going to win at the end of the round, foregone conclusion, and then it turns out the one player who had their only world left, that's all they had. They were completely wiped out elsewhere, and they were just building up home, and he managed to actually pull it off. He scored enough points. He was ahead of initiative above me, whatever, and he won. Second time, Alex. Second time, we thought my win was a foregone conclusion, and then something happened. This time it wasn't my fault, though.
For folks who don't remember the story, the one time I played Twilight Imperium, Sean thought he had won the game to the point where we almost started packing the thing up. And then we realized he was a big old liar and didn't have enough points.
I just misread it. I misread
you did
the
misread
card.
it. You misread the card. Didn't have enough points, and so we stopped putting things away, got back to it, and someone else ended up winning. That wasn't Sean. Yeah.
And then after that, I got to play a 3-player game of Through the Ages, which is interesting. I've been playing it so much on the iPad, playing the app so much. I don't know that I want to play it in real life anymore. Like I can bust out a game of it in like 20, 25 minutes on my iPad. And we played for like 3 hours and it was fun. We had a good time. I don't know. Anyway, and then also before Tabletop Day, we had the 3rd Gamers Garage sale over at Empire. And I got rid of a bunch of games, not as many as I would have liked. Can you tell from the video, Alex, that my face is a little red? I got a little sun because we did it outside this time.
Okay. I can't tell. You look pretty rough in general, almost like you've been up very, very late the night before.
Oh, well, that's true. That's a whole nother story. We'll skip that because of Dice Tower requirements. But it was a lot of fun. We sold a bunch of stuff all around everyone that participated, and but it's good. It's a good way to kind of cull the collection. I had some games that were on my shelf of shame, which we'll talk about later in our discussion topic, but I figured, you know what? If it sat on here for this period of time, it's still in shrink. I haven't even had the desire to open it up and sort it or read the rules or whatever. Maybe I just need to get rid of it. So, but that was my tabletop day. But let's go back a couple weeks to talk about a different game with Twilight in its title. This time, Colonial Twilight. The French Alegerian War, 1954 to 1962. That is a long title, Alex. But that's the whole title.
Okay.
So this is a GMT game. It is part of the Coin series. Coin stands for counterinsurgency. And generally they're 4-player games. I'm thinking there's a 3-player one. I'm blanking on it. This has the distinction of being the first 2-player Coin game. And these are excellent solo games because, it's kind of hard to get the 4 people together for this because it's a pretty involved style of game. And this is 2 players, and also if you're going to play this solo, it makes it a little bit easier because when you play these coin games solo, you can either play with bots or you could just play all of the individual factions yourself. But this is the French Alegerian War essentially, and so one person is the French forces, which controls French troops, and then also like Algerian police. And then the other side are the Algerian nationalists, the freedom fighters, essentially. This was really cool because it let you kind of grok the whole coin system. So as far as a solo experience goes, this is a bit of an easier experience because typically you'd have to manage the 3 different bots. You'd play the one faction you're controlling and then 3 other bots, or you could just play all the factions, which is kind of difficult to do. I've struggled with both of those, playing Cuba Libre, which is the Cuban coin game. So this, I think, makes it a little bit easier because there's your faction and then one other faction. So that's pretty cool. So what I did was I played the tutorial. What's nice is these have a tutorial. You put a deck of cards in a certain order, and then you play through it. And then at the end of that, you can just kind of keep playing however you want to go about it. And it's a good way to learn the game. So here's how it works. You have a map of whatever country you're dealing with. Here we're talking about Algeria. It's divided into different regions. Some of these regions have different cities. Also, these regions, some of them are different types of terrain, which will have certain effects during the game. Basically, each turn, a card from the deck is revealed. So you don't have a hand of cards. There's this one card. And the first player, the player that has priority, chooses what they're going to do. They can choose to do the event on the card, but there's an event for the French player and a different event usually for the Algerian player. And you choose which event, you choose if you're going to do the event. And if you do, then the other player can't do the event. And it also it restricts what they're actually able to do on your turn. Or you can do an operation with kind of a bonus action. And again, if you do that, it restricts what the other player can do, but it also has an effect on initiative on the next turn. So basically, if you're the French player, you're trying to move about the different French troops. You're trying to move the Algerian police in certain ways to kind of expose the insurgents, because the insurgents can either be active or inactive. In other words, if they're kind of underground and they're doing things in secret, they're inactive. And so you have to kind of root them out before you can actually eliminate them. And essentially what the insurgents are trying to do is basically have a certain number of bases plus a certain number of opposition towards the government in each region to be able to win. And then it's kind of the opposite. They need support for the government forces in order to win. So yeah, don't think you'd like these games at all, Alex. But
nope.
I really dig them, and I think I'm going to get to play this one a lot more than the others. I own 4 others, but I've only played Cuba Libre. I've read through the rules on all the rest of them. This is a type of game where I need to find the time to play these, the right group. I mean, I have people that I think would be great for this group. It's just hard finding the time for all of us to get together and do that. So that is Colonial Twilight, the French-Alegerian War, 1954 to 1962, designed by Brian Train and GMT Games.
All right, very cool. This past Wednesday, I was over at Jamie Stegmeier's and got in a game called Visitor in Blackwood Grove. Sean, have you heard of this game?
I have not.
So this game sort of takes the E.T. concept. Basically, you have one player who is an alien, and you have one player who's a kid trying to befriend the alien, and then the other players are government agents from different agencies trying to...
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes.
Why do you have to go straight to E.T.? Why not the highly underrated Mac and Me?
I've not seen Mac and Me,
nor
am I particularly familiar with it.
It was a terrible, terrible ripoff that had a bunch of McDonald's tie-ins. So anyway, go on. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, nice. So Big Mac and Me should have been the name of it? Anyway. In this, how this works is the alien player will set some sort of a rule. There are a bunch of these item cards that have different things on them. They might have a lamp or a boat or a plane or a chair, but a bunch of just different objects. And the alien player will secretly set a rule. The rule might be something like, things that are metal are allowed into my force field. Things that are not are not. Or things that start with the letter H are allowed in, but other things are not. And what players will do is they will take turns basically giving the alien a card and saying, is this inside the force field or outside of the force field? So trying to test some of those requirements. And ultimately, when you think you figured it out, you're trying to be the first to prove that you know the rule. And proving you know the rule in this game is flipping 4 cards at random off the deck and then sorting them. So this is definitely in, this is definitely out, this is definitely in, this is definitely out. If you get that right, you win, even if you don't actually know how the rule is done. That's a key point to something that came up in my play of this. The kid and the alien, as the kid gets better information or makes better guesses, the trust between them builds, which gives the kid better powers. The agents are just trying to beat the kid to figuring out the rules so they can capture that alien. So that's the gist of the game. In the game that we were playing, our alien was very, very picky about what got let into the force field, and we were trying to we couldn't figure out exactly why. But at some point I realized I'm just going to try and prove the rule. Since only 1 card out of 12 has gotten in anyway, maybe I'll just try and prove the rule by flipping up 4 cards and saying, none of these belong in the force field. And sure enough, none of them belonged in the force field. I didn't know the rule, didn't have any idea how the rule worked, and yet I was still able to win off of sheer dumb luck. Now, some of that was the alien player setting a little bit too restrictive of a rule. You need some sort of balance there, right? If it's too easy to guess, that's not good. If it's too hard to guess, that's not good either. If it's too restrictive, that's especially not good because I as the agent player, I was with the NSA in this context, was able to get in on that force field. This game strikes me as has some really cool thematic potential, and I'd like to play it some more to get a sense of whether it lives up to it. But initial play, it kind of fell a little flat. So,
let me ask you this. Have you played Zendo from Looney Labs?
I have not.
Because it kind of has a similar concept. You have one person who has devised a rule. The other players have all of these different, the Looney Lab pyramid pieces, different colors.
Right.
And so you arrange them in a certain way to see if it meets the rule. Sounds pretty similar. I don't know. I can't quite tell the difference. I mean, there's some obvious differences, but at its core, they seem pretty similar.
Your rules are, I think, more flexible than, because if you're just using the Looney Lab pyramids, the kinds of cards you have in this game are things like a puppy or a lizard or a chair, or it's a bunch of different things. And so your rules can be pretty varied. So,
well, sure, but in the Looney Labs, it's not just the colors. Like you can like put them on, like this pyramid needs to be up, whereas this color pyramid needs to be on its side, whereas there needs to be a certain number of this type of pyramid or whatever. It just seemed similar to me. It
could be. I haven't played Zendo, so I don't know. I think this is striking me as an attempt to have more of a thematic flair with the ET
absolutely.
and aliens and agents and all of that. But possibly at its core, it's not that different. I don't know Zendo well enough to make the comparison.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's Visitor in Blackwood Grove by Resonim Games.
So a couple Wednesdays ago, I got to play Poseidon, which is I believe it's a 2010 title from Z-Man Games. Unfortunately, it's out of print right now, so if this is something that's going to sound interesting to you, you're probably going to have to look for it a little bit. But this was designed by Helmut Oli and Leonard Orgler. They have designed a bunch of 18xx games, and they're the designers of Russian Railroads, one of my favorite worker placement games. So Poseidon is supposed to be kind of a intro into 18xx style games. So if you're not familiar with 18xx games, basically you are an individual that is trying to have the most valuable stock portfolio, and you're doing this by investing in certain companies, some that you might run, investing in other players' companies that they might run, and then you're typically building rail tracks on whatever map you're playing, trying to create the most lucrative routes for your companies that you're controlling, and then you're going to pay out on these routes, either usually some combination to the stockholders or to the company itself, or split. So Poseidon takes that and says, okay, it's not a rail game. It is basically a game in ancient Greece where you're creating these trading routes and these trading posts, and you're basically doing the same thing though. And you're not buying stocks and companies, you are buying merchants in different kingdoms. And it's kind of funny, throughout the entire rulebook, they're like, well, it's not this thing from a rail game, but it is really this thing, and we're just calling it something else. So they have no qualms about it. They're not, I mean, they're definitely trying to say, hey, this isn't a train game, but really it's a train game. So what makes this kind of an entry-level point? Couple things, I think. And keep in mind, I have only played one 18xx game other than this, although I don't know that I really consider this one, and that's 1846, which is many people consider to be the true 18xx introductory game. I owned a couple others. Again, kind of like the Coin series, these are games I just wish I had more time for because I really enjoy these. But what sets this apart, Poseidon, is that you're not building tracks. One of the cool things in 18xx games is you build a track and you have to control, whether it's a straightaway, a curve. Eventually you can upgrade a track to like a level 2, and then it adds additional routes on that particular track, but they still have to match the pre-existing routes that are surrounding it. Then you can upgrade again. So there's this really cool spatial component where you're trying to map out everything. Here, this does away with that completely. You are simply creating a link of these trading ships along these hexes that basically form routes. So it simplifies that concept immensely. Also, it's a predetermined number of rounds. In a lot of these games, you set the bank at a certain number of or certain value, and then once that bank gets paid out, whatever that might be, that's what's going to trigger the end game. It also has some reduced complexity and some of the special abilities. So a lot of these 18xx games have these special companies which give you some ability or some kind of income or some combination thereof. This reduces that complexity significantly. It's also harder to manipulate stock prices in this game. I mean, it's streamlining everything. It's taking out a lot of the complexities of this game, or this type of game, and just streamlining it for you. So when all was said and done, we played it at 5 players. I sat there thinking, man, I wish I could play 1846 right now or some other full-on 18xx game. It was just as dry and themeless as an 18xx game. Although, I don't know, I think the theme is actually pretty good in 18xx's. I mean, you're doing what you're doing, right? You're buying stocks and you're building railroad networks, and that's it, right? I guess it's not really themeless, but it's dry, right? They're dry. So the Poseidon was dry without the satisfaction that I got from, say, 1846. And it was shorter. Don't get me wrong, it was certainly shorter. One of the reasons I picked this up is I heard that this is pretty good at 2, and I really wanted to try teaching an 18xx game to Raquel, because like we'll be at a con. We were at Arizona Game Fair and we passed by 1846, and she saw it and she was like immediately enamored with it. She's like, "Oh, okay, that looks really cool." Also, you and Raquel are two very different people, apparently.
Yes.
So
very much so.
Yeah. So yeah, it was okay, and I'm gonna try and play it 2 players with Raquel at some point, but I don't know that I'm gonna if someone wants to do a deep dive into an 18xx game, we're gonna start with 1846. It's not that complicated that you need a game like Poseidon. So yeah, that's Poseidon from Z-Man Games.
Very cool. Well, let's go over and take a look at the news. First up in news, a big team up. BGG, Board Game Geek, and Rodney, Watch It Played, have joined forces. Sean, this is happening May 1st. You're going to see new video content, tutorial videos on BGG's pages featuring Watch It Played content. There's a new logo that has BGG mentioned. And the big part of all of this that has come up, Rodney made this announcement in a YouTube video, his annual fundraiser, will not be necessary for this deal, which is really cool. I am super stoked for everyone involved in this.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think it's really sweet. And I got to say, this is the biggest team up that I've seen this week. Bigger even than Avengers Infinity War.
Sean's getting paid to promote Avengers Infinity War, by the way.
Hey, it's a quality film. Let me tell you everything about it right now, because you still haven't seen it, right?
I have not seen it.
So Raquel and Mariah and I, we all went opening night. It was fantastic. Anyway, that's not the point. Oh man, it was fantastic. But yeah, no, this is fantastic news. I'm very happy for Rodney. I'm very happy for the Avengers and for BGG.
Good job. Get those box office grosses, guys.
Well, no, you know what?
Climb the charts.
So honestly, I know. I mean, obviously, Rodney does an amazing product, right? What the video production that he does, the extent to which his tutorials are scripted, all the other types of videos he does on the channel, it's fantastic. I mean, Rodney is really one of the best in the business. And so now this team up with BGG, making that fundraiser no longer necessary, that takes away time from his ability to actually produce the content, right? Because that's, I mean, hey, I don't have to tell you, Alex. Actually, I should just shut up because I have zero experience running a Kickstarter, and I'm trying to make myself sound like I do apparently. But I can imagine.
Yes,
that it takes a lot of time.
Yes, it certainly can. Especially, and remember, I'm part of a company that can run this, as opposed to say an individual or a couple of people. So yeah, I think this is great news. And Rodney was talking a lot about this in the YouTube video about the fit of this. That because BGG is games agnostic, right? That they are for games as a whole and board gamers and people learning new games, but they're not in favor of one company, one publisher, they're just a forum and a place to discuss and a database and everything it means to the community. That because of that, Rodney wanted to be part of that too.
Sure.
That was the perfect fit for him, and I thought that was well thought out. So I think it's a perfect match, and hopefully it'll be one that continues for many years to come. Yeah. Congrats, Rodney. Congrats, BGG.
Yes, indeed. So, Alex, the next bit of news is interesting to you because you've gotten some flack for giving away the Z-Man copy of Arboretum, an excellent game, an excellent kind of rummy-style game where you're laying out these beautiful trees in a particular pattern so you can walk through the garden or walk through the orchards. You gave this away.
I did. And hey, by the way, Sean, when is your giveaway happening?
It's going to happen. I'm a little...
Dude. Hey.
I'm starting a new business here.
Oh, okay. There's always going to be something, Sean.
Yes.
Starting a new business, having to deal with a gas leak. So many excuses, man.
Well, let me know in the 4 hours after this when I'm editing the podcast. What are you doing for the 4 hours after this recording, Alex?
I am probably going to go out and enjoy the sun because it's 72 and sunny in St. Louis, and I'm loving it.
Okay. All right. Another plug for
I'm
McDonald's.
a very hardworking guy, Sean.
Yeah. So anyway, Renegade Games has announced that they're coming out with a second edition. And this isn't going to just be a reprint because they're doing all new art by Beth Sobel, who I think is a fantastic board game artist. And she said that basically it's going to be distinct enough, the different types of trees, so that colorblind people can differentiate easily enough. So yeah, I think this sounds really cool. I will probably pick up a copy because I like Beth Sobel's art, and I'm curious to see what she's going to do differently with it. I have to say, the Z-Man production of Arboretum is itself beautiful. I think it's so cool the way that it's just so simple. It's just gorgeous.
And was constantly out of print, was constantly completely unavailable, very hard to find, which is part of why people were like, what are you doing giving that thing away? I don't know, Sean. I don't know stuff. I also sold Zombicide for way less than I should have. That's just how I roll.
Yeah, you sure did. So, Alex, get your $20 ready because that's going to be the MSRP, and maybe you can go pick it up in the fall of 2018. But this is if you like Rummy style games, which I do, and then you like a little bit of tile placement because that's essentially what it is, combination of the two, then it's a pretty good game. So,
yeah,
that is Arboretum's second edition coming out from Renegade Game Studios.
All right. And finally, we like talking about Kickstarters. So here's one from one of our sponsors, full disclosure, Tasty Minstrel Games. This is Homesteaders, the 10th Anniversary Edition. This is one of the titles that helped launch TMG back in 2009. Sean, tell us a little bit about this game.
So honestly, Alex, I'm not super familiar with it because it has been out of print for such a long time. I mean, for the most part, I've backed a fair number of TMG titles, especially deluxeified titles. And we should note, this is not a quote-unquote deluxeified title. Basically, their thinking was, number one, the components in the original Homesteaders were so good, it almost counts as deluxeified. And number two, because this is part of their 10th anniversary extravaganza, as they put it, they wanted this to be available at retail as well. And their deluxeified is only available on Kickstarters. So I think that's kind of a cool decision. So my understanding of it is basically you're playing as settlers in the Old West, and there's an auction component and resource management. You're basically creating these buildings. They're going to give you additional resources, abilities, rule-breaking things. They're going to help you to continue to improve your homestead, so to speak. And so, it sounds like a pretty straightforward mid-weight Euro. From what you've seen, does it look interesting to you?
Maybe. I think it's one of those that I'd have to try to truly know. It's hard to know just off of a quick peek whether that's going to be something I'm going to like enough to back. For me, a Kickstarter, I have to be pretty dang sure about it to back it. For instance, the Matai expansion was an insta-back. So, yeah, it might be one where I'll wait and see a little bit on it. I'll wait and see.
Okay. So according to the Kickstarter page, if you're curious what's new in this 10th anniversary edition, this is going to include components needed to add a fifth player to the game, plus more auction and building tiles to give more variance to each play session. It will have 25 jumbo-size resource components. Each of these count as 5 resources and of normal size. Perhaps the most exciting addition that the expansion brings to your table is a brand new events deck. Every round of the game will be altered slightly by an event, and the players will need to be on their toes and plan accordingly for these changes if they're going to come out on top at the end of the game. And if you happen to have the original Homesteaders, the expansion that they're bringing out as part of this, the New Beginnings expansion, is fully compatible. So I think that's really cool. Because a lot of times, especially with that kind of lag in time, you'll see an expansion that may not be compatible. Either the card backs are significantly different or whatever. I don't know. But that's really cool. So if you want to pick this up, it is $60 to get a copy of the 10th anniversary edition, $20 if you just want the expansion, or $75 $5 if you want both.
This one ends May 11th, so as of the time of this episode dropping, you won't have a ton of time, maybe about a week and a half or so to get on board. Right now it's at $44,000 just across its $40,000 funding goal, so this thing is funded and ready to go.
All right, well, that sounds pretty interesting. So if you're interested in Homesteaders 10th Anniversary Edition, go check that out. That is a look at the Kickstarter, and that's a look at the news. Is the 10th anniversary for Tasty Minstrel Games, and they're celebrating with a 10th anniversary extravaganza, which includes reprints, special editions, and a whole lot more. Currently on Kickstarter is the Homesteaders 10th Anniversary Edition. This auction and resource management game is one of the 2 games that launched the company. Check it out on Kickstarter through May 11th. TMG is also hard at work putting together a new edition of the second game that launched the company, Terra Prime. Terra Prime will now be set in the very successful Eminent Domain universe as a prequel to Eminent Domain called Eminent Domain Origins. Keep an eye out for more details about this and what else they have on the horizon for their 10th anniversary extravaganza. You can learn more from the TMG podcast hosted by Lance the Undead Viking, and you can check out what else they have in store this year, along with information about all their other amazing titles over at playtmg.com. Arcane Wonders is pleased to announce the release of Senshi coming this May. In Senshi, you are a warrior monk studying diligently at the temple under the tutelage of the current master. You and your fellow students train vigorously every day to improve your mind and body, but your master is ailing, and only one Senshi will become the next master. To prove your worth, you must develop 4 attributes: strength, agility, wisdom, and honor. A true master must be strong in all of these, and weak in none. Senshi is designed by Dan Manfredi. It's a strategy game for 2 to 4 players that takes about 15 minutes to play. You'll carefully manipulate stacks of tiles that represent those 4 attributes: the strength, agility, wisdom, and honor. You'll compete in a battle of wits to become the next master of your temple. You can learn more about Senshi and Arcane Wonders, other amazing titles at arcanewonders.com. You know what, friends? Board game tables are an expensive proposition for sure. But nothing beats the experience of playing your favorite games in style on a high-quality playing surface. Now, thanks to our buddy Berkey and Game Toppers, you can turn your own kitchen or dining room table into a premium, portable game solution with all the features of a high-end gaming table, but, and this is important, at a fraction of the cost. I have played games on these Game Toppers before, and I have got to say that they are truly excellent. This is someone who has played on custom-built tables, on mass-produced gaming tables. I got to tell you, these Game Toppers are fantastic. They feature the best of both worlds, featuring beautiful premium wood and finishes, as well as lightweight aluminum to make the setup, breakdown, and transportation a breeze. Plus, you can use thematic gaming mats to match your play experience. So, if you're looking for an affordable solution to your board gaming table needs, look no further than Game Toppers, and you can check them out at GameToppersLLC.com.
When Terra Mystica dropped in 2012, it was a game that caught a heck of a lot of attention, and it's captured a heck of a lot of love. It's currently ranked number 8th overall on BGG. So will taking this setting and putting it in space, re-implementing this game in space, be any good? We're talking Gaia Project this week.
In Gaia Project, each player controls one of 14 factions striving to peacefully colonize the Terra Mystica galaxy. Each faction has different environmental needs to survive on a planet. These needs have led the factions to master terraforming, enabling them to make different planet types habitable for themselves. During the game, you will colonize new planets, upgrade mines into better structures, and unite planets to form federations. The choice is yours. Will you expand in your other factions, which might give you power and trade partners, or will you look for solitude, where you can expand more freely? In addition, you will need to research and discover new technologies to improve your skills. In the end, only the best developed faction will win. Hey, that's a rules overview, Alex. and I think rightly so for a couple of reasons. I mean, I want to be able to go into this enough for people that aren't familiar with Terra Mystica, but there's just simply a lot going in here, and I feel like if I did a full rules explanation, I'd be talking about, and that's different in Terra Mystica because of this or that. I think we can kind of talk about some of the things in context of the rules as we go through the review. But yeah, this is kind of what I would call a medium-heavy Euro game. Resource management. It is, so let's talk about Terra Mystica real quick. Terra Mystica was my number one game for a year, 2 years, somewhere around there. And it actually fell off my top 10 this last year in August 2017 when we redid our top 10 list. Not because it's a terrible game, but because I've been playing it a ton on my iPad. And not that it killed the game for me, but it was really satisfying to be able to just play a game of it in 40 minutes on my iPad instead of, 2-3 hours with a bunch of other people. So that's going to kind of color my entire review, I think, in some way, shape, or form. But this is, in many ways, very similar to Terra Mystica. It is, in other ways, very different. It streamlines certain things, but then makes other aspects of the game more complex. When push comes to shove, I think that gameplay and mechanics, this is objectively, and I quote unquote objectively, a better game than Terra Mystica. So it's subjectively, objectively. I'm just saying there's enough there to make it a better game in terms of gameplay and mechanics. I enjoyed this, but there's some interesting things I'm going to need to kind of tease out in my review, if that makes sense. So what did you think, Alex? This is not an Alex game. This is very much more a Sean game. And wait, before you answer, Alex, I seem to remember you somewhat liking Terra Mystica when you first played it. You seem to say you didn't. But
did you go back and check the tape?
No. I didn't.
Okay.
Because I think you played it well before we started the podcast, and then you never played it again. Eugene backed me up. He's like, I seem to remember playing this with you and Alex, and him being okay with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that recollection is closer to. No, I'm not going to dispute that.
I thought you hated it.
I think it's in comparison to Zolkin. This one I was more ready to play again than I was Zolkin at the time.
All right.
So I was more okay with it than I was, say, Zolkin. So in that comparison, sure. Did I hate it? No. Did I enjoy it? I don't know if I'd go that far. So, yeah. That's the history lesson.
Okay. All right. So what are your thoughts?
All right, Sean, I've got a story to tell you. Sit down. This is going to be a long one. I'm going to spin you a tale here, Sean.
All right.
So about 2 weeks ago, we decided we were going to review the Gaia project, which was, when we're in two different places for folks listening, it's tough sometimes to coordinate getting copies in each of our hands or getting access to games in both places. More for me than for you, just by the nature of Empire and sort of that base and what that base means. Gaia Project had hit the table at Jamie Stegmeier's game night pretty much, I think, for 8 straight weeks when it initially came out, and had consistently come out ever since. I know people had copies. I know people enjoyed it. No problem there, right? All right, first week goes by. We have the first Wednesday, and we have a Monochromatic Wolf Play Experiences demo night that coincides with that same night, so it doesn't happen. No problem. I'll get it in this coming Wednesday. It's okay. No issue at all. I get to Jamie's on Wednesday, and the group that I thought would be likely to play it is playing Lords of Hellas. Are you familiar with that one, Sean?
I am. I haven't played it yet, but I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, it's definitely your kind of game. It seems like Kemet on steroids, and the minis look really cool, and it looks like a game I do not care for. The other group, which had people who also like Gaia Project in it, unfortunately, one member of that group was under the weather, had a sinus infection, and didn't want to play stuff of that weight that night. Hence why we played Visitor Blackwood Grove. Okay, so I started to panic a little bit, but luckily for me, I get a reprieve because Sean's going to see the Avengers Infinity War on Thursday, and we push the recording back to Sunday morning. So I put out the word on St. Louis area board gamers on the Facebook group there, and I say, does anyone out there have Gaia Project and would be willing to play it with me Friday or Saturday on International Tabletop Day and these times? Is that going to work? people saw this, tagged other people, and those people responded and said, oh, I have it, but I can't make those times. Or I have it, but I don't want to play something that long. Or I have it, but no. So that didn't happen, and now I'm really starting to sweat because time's crunching here. And so Friday, I say to Jamie, hey, can I borrow your copy of Gaia Project? I'll swing over, I'll borrow it, and I'm going to get it played with Josh, because I know I was going to be hanging out with Josh yesterday as of the time of this recording. I head over to Josh's. First order of business is Josh is trying out for Survivor. For the TV show Survivor.
Yeah.
He did an in-person audition in Kansas City. And I was helping him with the video editing software Lightworks. I was helping him figure that out. We were having some issues with that. We downloaded Avid, a bunch of other programs, couldn't get the video to work. It's frustration, whatever else. We go to lunch. At lunch, at this place called La Casona, we order a pitcher of margaritas. And we split the pitcher of margaritas. And by the time I come back, we were in no mood to play Gaia Project. So we got in Tales of Arabian Nights.
What? Wait,
Tales of Arabian Nights.
Are you telling me you didn't play Gaia Project?
I didn't play Gaia Project. I'm sorry, I'm very irresponsible sometimes. I don't know what to tell you. Okay. The look on Sean's face right now is priceless. Oh, it's just priceless.
Give me a sec. So
I did physically hold a copy of this game during the span of the 2 weeks.
And through osmosis.
And I had the intent to play it. I did watch by the way, a how to play video, a 15-minute how to play video on this, but I may have forgotten to actually play it in time for this episode.
Okay.
And may just be informing Sean of this at this moment.
So.
Yes.
When you were living here in Albuquerque, and I was constantly cracking the whip, and slapping Baseball Highlights 2045 out of your hands. No, play something new for the show.
Yep.
It was all warranted.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think it wasn't warranted. And in fairness, I got a new plays. I'd never played Tales of Arabian Nights. Do you want to hear my thoughts on that game, Sean?
Oh, no, I don't.
It was fun. I had a lot of fun with it, especially when you've had split a pitcher of margaritas with someone. I was playing as Aladdin Goldsmith. I got married at one point. I was a vizier, but unfortunately I had to go back to where my wife was before I could go to Baghdad to win the game. And so as a result, Josh was able to swoop in and win the game, despite the fact that he was in beast form and had all sorts of stuff and ended up in prison. So Tales of Arabian Nights, I'd play it again. Give it a 4 or 5, somewhere in that range.
What, 4 or 5?
Yeah, that's a 4. Probably closer to a 4. Right, mechanically, it's not. Mechanically, there's not much going on there. But I was delighted by the play experience in that proper situation.
We're going to call an audible, and we're gonna review Tales of Arabian Nights. I've played it twice. I've owned it. I've sold it. I give it a 2. Game has some merits, but has significant issues. It's a 2. And for oh wow, since like Above and Below, Near and Far, those are all like in my mind vastly superior. To
games as a game, those are vastly superior
as an experience.
As a game, I had fun with. We played just 2.
It's the margaritas, Alex. It's
with
the margaritas.
2, it might be, but you know what, Sean? Sometimes you need the game for that occasion. That game and Soccer Tactics World, which is another game that isn't mind-blowing mechanically, but is a lot of fun in that situation. Oh, and we'd also had Scotch too. I forgot to add that Scotch and cucumber sour beer and all sorts of fun stuff. Anyway. Now, I will see, does this count, Sean? On Wednesday, I did play part of First Martians, Visitor in Blackwood Grove, which has to do with aliens, and Flip Ships. All of those are space-themed. Does that count as Gaia Project?
Sure, why not? Why not?
Great. I will give my full thoughts during this review. Hey, Sean, let's talk about the rulebook.
Oh, boy. It's a good rulebook. It's a solid rulebook. It's good. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about components art. Hold on. I gotta wrap my head around this. Okay. All right. I'm gonna. I'm gonna stretch a little bit. I'm gonna get all the kinks out.
Look, Sean, I have grown in many ways.
I'm gonna put the show on my shoulders, Alex.
Okay.
I'm gonna bend at the knees. I'm gonna sustain the entire weight of the show and of our featured review. And I'm gonna soldier through. Okay,
Sean, in the 3.5 years that we have done this show, I have grown in many ways, so many ways, and in some ways I haven't grown at all.
Okay.
How you doing over there?
I'm
right?
good. I'm good.
All right.
Components art. The art is garbage.
I agree.
It is good. You could talk about this because you've seen it. That's good. That's good at least. I'm sorry. This art is terrible. It looks terrible. The game on the table looks terrible. All of the faction art, the box art, it is just awful. It is just awful. And it is very off-putting to me. When I think of Terra Mystica, I love the art. And I know some people have had some issues with it. I think it looks beautiful. I think it's I may even be the same person. I should look into that. Or you should look into that since you have nothing else to do.
What am I doing?
Double check who the artist is on
Terra Mystica?
Yeah.
All right, stand by.
Oh, it's Dennis Lohausen.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I think Dennis Lohausen is a fantastic artist, and he has done tons of other titles that I think are good. I think are really good. And
he did the art on Terra Mystica too. He did the art for both of the games.
And I don't get it. I really don't. And I don't know if it's the fact that it's in space that kind of threw him for a loop because he's used to more of either, fantasy or pastoral settings, whatever. But I look at this and it just looks bad. The graphic design, the way the whole thing looks on the table, to me it's just really bad. Now you've got the plastic components, so you have all of your different structures. You have your mines and your the different trading posts. I forget what they're called in Terra or in Gaia Project. They have more spacey names, and you have like your planetary institute. Anyway, they're all plastic, and I guess you want plastic pieces in a space game, but it makes it feel cheaper in some way. I kind of miss the wood stuff. I don't know, and that's just kind of a personal preference. There's a lot of components in here, and there's some really cool things. Like, for example, there are these little green resources. They're called QIC, quantum something cubes.
Quantum intelligence cubes, I believe.
Good job, Alex. Way to come through in a pinch. And they're really cool. They're like these little cubes, but they're missing a little chunk. A little like cube in the corner is missing. Lots of cool little components here. And so I think it's fine. I get why they chose plastic, but it still feels a little bit off in my mind. But yeah, as far as the appearance of the game, it really held it back in my mind. And that, along with some other things, may hold back some on the scoring for me. So,
I mean, part of when I brought the game into Josh's house with the intent to play it, I recall him saying pretty immediately, "This is a really ugly game," and that was my impression looking at it too. It's a really ugly game.
Yeah,
and I don't know why it's so ugly, but it is.
I can't imagine. I mean, if I were in charge of that project and the cover art comes in, I would have said, no, we're not using this. Like, it's very off-putting. And I think that if people weren't familiar with Terra Mystica, and if people didn't know that this was the successor to it, that it would turn off most people. I mean, if I walked in and I saw that art knowing nothing about the game, absolutely wouldn't even give it a second thought. Absolutely not.
And this is not typically the time for guild thoughts, but we had a guild thought specifically on this issue from Jonas Resting Jepson, who says, "What is it about bad artwork and terraforming games? I think Terra Mystica is just my kind of game, but the illustrations of the cover has always been off-putting to me, so I haven't sought it out. I heard they were doing Gaia Project. My first thought was, yay, happy days. I'll get an updated Terra Mystica with modern design and artwork. Turns out the art is more of the same and then in space, which is something I have a hard time getting into. Maybe I should just download the Terra Mystica app and see if I can ignore the artwork." And I don't know how many people this thing has turned off, because even with that, the Gaia project is ranked number 14 all time on BGG already. So clearly people are getting this. It hasn't mattered too much, but
no, yeah, and it's on the back of the gameplay, because the gameplay is good. It's really good. So let's talk a little bit about that. So in essence, what you're doing in this game is you're trying to score points, and you do that in a couple different ways. You do that in each of the 6 rounds because it's giving you some sort of focus. So in this particular round, it might say score 2 points every time you build a mine, or score 3 points whenever you do a terraforming step, because there are these 6 different planet types, and basically it requires a certain amount of effort to terraform along this wheel, in essence, although they don't use a wheel in this game, they do in Terra Mystica. But anyway, and so you can score points in that way. You can also score points at the throughout the game when you build these federations, which are basically collections of your structures of a certain value, and it gives you some sort of one-time bonus and then some victory points. Another big way to score victory points is at the end of the game. There are these 2 end game scoring focuses, where basically if you're in first place, you're going to get 16 points, I believe. Second place, I'm forgetting now, 12, and then 8 or something like that. So first, second, third, and each of these 2 categories. And then there's some other ways throughout the game, depending on your faction, depending on what sort of technology tiles you pick up or whatever, that you can score points throughout the game. So that's essentially what you're doing, and you have to be focused on what's happening in each individual round, or what the focus is. And you're building these mines, which will give you ore, which is kind of your basic resource. You can build other buildings that give you money, or that give you knowledge, which is what you need to build your technologies. But there's a whole hierarchy in how you build them. So I can't just say, oh, I want to build my Planetary Institute, which is a level 3 building. First, I have to build a mine. Then I have to upgrade it into a trading post, which is not the right name. I can't remember what the right name is. Then I can build it into the Planetary Institute. And so you just have to make sure that you're generating the resources you need to kind of go through this process. But then there's so much other stuff to do, because you could spend, for example, the other resource, knowledge, to go up on one of these 6 different technology tracks. This is similar to the temple track in Terra Mystica, except in Terra Mystica, it's just a track for the sake of a track. And you're going to score points based on how high you are on each of these 4 tracks at the end of the game. And sometimes you'll get some sort of benefit in Terra Mystica when you reach certain points. Basically, it's power, which I'll explain in a little bit. But here with the technology tracks in Gaia Project, you're getting additional bonuses too. So for example, there's a track that just gives you these quantum intelligence cubes as you go up. There's a track that improves your range for colonizing and terraforming new worlds. There's a track that gives you additional income. There's a track that gives you additional knowledge throughout the game. And every time you go up these tracks, you're just kind of jockeying for position there, because it's also potentially worth points at the end of the game. And I like how it does that a lot better in this game. I like that there are these different tracks, and it lets you kind of specialize more so than you could in Terra Mystica. In addition, in Terra Mystica, it had the divine favor tiles, and they were associated with particular tracks. Here you have technology tiles, and they're randomly assigned to different tracks, and there are some also kind of wild ones that will let you bump up a track of your choice. And so that definitely adds to the variability of each game. Does much of this kind of sound familiar from what you remember of Terra Mystica, Alex?
No, and what I recall from Terra Mystica are 2 concepts. One is that power pool mechanic, where power moves from one area to another, to another, to another. I recall something involving magic where you would use that power.
Okay.
And I recall if you built near people, that would give them some benefit.
Sure.
That building near people had some effect. Those are the core mechanics or concepts that I remember from Terraforming Mars. Or sorry.
Nope.
Wow. Terra Mystica.
Yep.
Terra Mystica, that game.
There
not
you go.
the other one. Yep.
Yeah, so power is
yeah.
an interesting concept. So basically, you have these 3 bowls of power. Bowls, B-O-W-L-S. Bowl 1, Bowl 2, Bowl 3. if you have these little purple discs, which are your power, in bowl 3, you can spend them for certain effects. So, for example, if I have, I think it's 7 power, which is a lot, mind you, I can get 2 knowledge. Or if I spend, I'm trying to remember, I think it's like 5 power, I can get 2 ore or whatever. You could also spend them for money. You could also spend them for a lot of different ways to spend this power. And as you gain power through the game, so you might have an income that is gained a certain amount of power, or like you said, when you're adjacent to someone when they build, you're going to get some power. You have to move any power in bowl 1 to bowl 2 first. Once it's in bowl 2, you can't move into bowl 3 unless bowl 1 is completely empty. And it's kind of a difficult concept that usually when I've taught both Terraforming Mars and Gaia Project, it's something that takes a second kind of wrap your head around. But what's cool about Gaia Project is there's a lot more you do with power in this game, which is pretty interesting. So for example, if you're going to form a federation, so when you have the right number of structures in an area, or really the number of the levels, it needs to be 7 levels worth of structures in an area, you have to remove power from your bowls in order to build satellites to connect them. Because unlike Terra Mystica, where it's basically a bunch of different land masses separated by some rivers, here you have 1, 2, I don't think there's ever really 3. You have 1 or 2 planets connected to each other, and then you have a bunch of empty space around it. So you have to have these satellites to link these different planets together, and you have to spend power, not spend power, but rather remove power from your bowls in order to do that. In addition, when you are trying to terraform these purple planets, so there are these Gaia planets, there are these green planets. They're not any one race's world. They're kind of these wild worlds. There are these purple planets that you can send one of your plastic pieces to basically terraform into a Gaia project over the course of a turn, and you have to spend power from your bowls and empty it into your separate Gaia bowl, which is now a new bowl that you have, which you'll eventually get back at the beginning of the turn into bowl 1. So you have to be a lot more, there's a lot more to consider with this power management. It's not just the power it was from Terra Mystica, it's added a lot more to that, which is pretty interesting.
Has the game gotten significantly more complicated? And the reason I ask this is because I'm looking at the BGG weight ratings. Terra Mystica is rated as a 3.91. This is rated as a 4.31 on enough ratings for that to be significant as far as the difference goes.
4.3. I wouldn't call it a 4.3. Maybe, I mean, yes, it is more complex than Terra Mystica. Like I said, there were certain things that they streamlined, but for the most part, it was adding a lot more complexity, I think.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that because it wasn't complexity for complexity's sake. It was, it made some interesting decisions and it made the game harder in certain ways. And so I'm okay with that. In addition, you have these 14 different factions. Basically, there are 7 player boards. They're double-sided, and they all have these, really unique asymmetric powers that really affect how you approach a game of this. So you have to, when you sit down and play this game, you have to look at, what does my race do? What is the particular arrangement of the round tiles for what I'm focusing on? And how am I playing to that particular strategy? So it's pretty interesting. Overall, I like it quite a bit. And like I was saying, kind of in our general thoughts, I think, at least for me, it is a better game than Terra Mystica.
Okay. Just as far as the game goes.
Correct. So there are definitely... Oh, and I should point out, I'm terrible at Terra Mystica. Terrible. I've always been terrible at Terra Mystica. Yet it was my favorite game for a long time. I am equally, if not more terrible at Gaia Project. My first game of this, so I've played this at 2, 3, and 4 players. My first play was at 3, and I was terrible. It's like I've never played a game before in my life of anything. I was just bad, very bad. And I knew I was being bad, and I knew I was making wrong decisions. And for whatever reason, yeah, it was bad. But it grew on me, and it certainly grew on me. I like this a lot at 2 players, actually. And that's something that Terra Mystica, I don't think was very good at 2 players. And I think that this is actually pretty good at 2. You can play this pretty quickly. It's a pretty quick experience at 2 players. But I think, I don't know. I might like this as a 2-player game now, which is weird. That's certainly weird. I'll have to think more about that. As far as theme goes, sure, it's got a bit.
It's got some theme.
You're terraforming. You're setting up federations. I don't know. It's what it is. It's a fairly. I mean, it's a Euro game. You're not expecting a whole big narrative experience or.
You have 14 different alien races, though, right? With their own kind of thematic abilities to them. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's interesting because you can kind of see some comparisons with the equivalent color faction race in Terra Mystica on some of them. Like they've definitely just kind of said, okay, well, let's bring that race over here. None of them, like some of the aliens are just kind of weird, and you're not really sure what they represent or how that ties into their ability. You have a race of like alien dolphins, which I think are kind of like the mermaids. So it's dolphin. So the blue race on one side is dolphins, the other side are humans. So it's kind of hard otherwise to figure out what's going on with the different factions.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, how about the rest of the guild thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, a couple more guild thoughts on this one. Phil Hendrickson says, whereas Terra Mystica was my #1 game of all time, and whereas Gaia Project was a space re-theme of my beloved Terra Mystica, and whereas I like the fantasy theme better than sci-fi, I was resolved to not like Gaia Project when it was the new hotness. Then I played it. Now I have to admit that Gaia Project improves on Terraforming... almost did Terraforming Mars again. On Terra Mystica in almost every way, except theme and thematic integration. I would almost always rather play Gaia Project. Interesting. Would you almost always rather play Gaia Project than Terra Mystica if both are available to you, Sean?
Yes. And
okay.
and again, part of that is because I can just play Terra Mystica on the app. But I think Phil and I are very much of a similar mindset. Yes, Gaia Project I think is the better game. I mean, if you're someone that likes, medium heavy Euros, resource management, all that stuff, I think it's the better game. And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to grin and bear it through the awful board presence, the table presence, the art, whatever.
Nick M says, I've played Gaia Project maybe 3 times and have enjoyed each play. I think it's so similar to Terra Mystica that I can't recommend owning both, and this one gets my vote mainly due to being space-themed. Probably a 5 on the Ducal scale for me. So that's the guild thoughts. Sean, what are your final thoughts and rating on this fine game that I did not play?
So, Alex.
Yes.
I sat there after my first 2 plays, and I actually talked this out with our buddy Matthew a little bit, because I was kind of struggling with my thoughts on this, because I sat there thinking to myself, this is a better game than Terra Mystica. Okay. Terra Mystica was my #1 game. If my initial thought with Terra Mystica is it's still probably a 6, even though it's fallen off my top 10. But as I was playing Gaia Project, I'm like, I don't know that this is a 6 experience for me. So we rate games on a 6-point scale here on the Dukes of Dice. And so a 6 is an all-time favorite that's a contender for the top 10. I don't know that Gaia Project is a contender for the top 10. In fact, it almost certainly isn't, even though it is a better game than Terra Mystica. But I struggle saying that Terra Mystica is no longer a 6. Maybe Terra Mystica is only a 5 now, and it's some combination of having the app available to play Terra Mystica, and now having this other game that's the successor to it, which in many ways is an improvement on it. Also, maybe it's the fact that, and this is kind of Matthew's contribution, that even though I think this is strictly better, it's not doing enough different that really sets it apart from Terra Mystica in my mind. In other words, it's so similar that it's just kind of rehashing some of the same stuff, even though there really is a lot different here. It's just, and then you throw in the art, right? You throw in the art, all of those things together just kind of muddy my thoughts on the game a little bit. So it is definitely not going to be a 6 for me. So is it a 4 or a 5? Well, a 4 is a good game, worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the duchy. A 5 is a great game, will rarely turn down a play of it. And so when we said, let's review Gaia Project, well, number one, I thought you'd play it so you could review it. Number two...
Uh-huh. That seems like a reasonable expectation.
Number two, I'm like, well, this is probably going to be a 6. Worst case scenario, it's going to be a 5. But there was a part of me, before we even decided to review this, where this was out at Empire all the time. I mean, multiple times a night, for weeks on end, just like in Jamie's group. And I kept kind of saying, I don't really want to play it. I don't really want to play it. It just kind of looks terrible. And it looks like it's just rehashing Terra Mystica. I mean, I bought a copy right away when it first came out, but I just
of course,
yeah, I just refused to play it. So it's very interesting to me. So, question: is it a great game that I'll rarely turn down a play of? I think I'm gonna turn it down from time to time. I think that I'm gonna think to myself, Gaia Project. I don't want to play that tonight, because if I have that itch, I'm just going to go home and play Terra Mystica on my app. And I can try out new strategies. I can try things out that are, that might be a waste of time, but then I've wasted 30 minutes instead of 2.5, 3 hours. So against my gut and against my... I don't know. It just feels weird. I'm calling this a 4, Alex.
That's so bizarre. I am stunned.
I'm really confused, and I'm struggling with this. It's a good game, worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the duchy.
I don't know how this can be better than Terra Mystica and be 2 points lower on the scale. That must mean something's wrong with the scale.
No, I think it's just... maybe dock it a point for the art, because it's bad, right?
Okay,
like you look at
I docked Terraforming Mars a point for the art, for the art and components.
Okay,
that kept it from getting to a 6 for me.
Sure. So you look at like Castles of Burgundy. I wouldn't say the Castles of Burgundy art is bad. I would just say that it's really bland and boring. And to me, that's different than bad. I think the Gaia Project art is bad. Even though it's done by an artist that I like, there are plenty of games that he's done where I'm like, oh yeah, this is great art. And for whatever reason, this is just not that case. So there's that. There's the fact that maybe there are certain expectations that weren't met. Like I said, it wasn't different enough from Terra Mystica. And in a lot of ways, the Terra Mystica app kind of kicked Terra Mystica off my top 10.
But Terra Mystica itself, you still consider a 6?
Well, I'm saying I don't know.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying
I see.
It might be a 5 now. The app may have made it a 5 in a certain respect, which in and of itself, is that even cool? Like, is that cool to say that? But I think it is, right? Because I don't know that I want to play Terra Mystica in person, knowing that either A, I could play Gaia Project instead, or B, I could play the app. And if they come out with a Gaia Project app, I will probably play that over the Terra Mystica app every day of the week.
I mean, we've had this discussion before with, for instance, Sentinels of the Multiverse. The app killed that game for me. Just killed it.
Yeah, because it's a great app.
Right. And it has you think, especially being on the publisher side of things, does having an app for your game help or hurt it? It certainly brings in a different source of revenue, but does it keep players from being as willing to play the game going forward? I don't know. It may not matter, but it's an interesting thought, because I've had this come up enough. And especially with this, to have this be a 4 is stunning to me. Is absolutely stunning.
I'm surprised at myself. I went into this review, again, A, thinking you would have had played it so we could review it.
Okay,
and
yep.
B, and B, assuming I was going to give it a 5. Like today as we were recording. I'm like, it's going to be a 5. But as I'm kind of working through everything, I'm like, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, here's what I will say. If this gets significant play over the next year, I think the potential for this to become a 5 is certainly there.
Sure. It's a high 4, I guess.
It's a high 4. Yeah. Not a 4.5.
I feel like we've been harsh in general of late. Since Unleashing the 2. Jeremy, what did you do by Unleashing the 2? You've brought everything down. It's also very sad. Anyway,
in your mind, Alex, I'm either handing out 6s like candy, or we're just being super harsh.
I'm just talking about the two of us. This isn't even a calling Sean out thing. I just feel like in general the scores have been lower of late. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting. I don't know if that's actually true. It's just the feel. It's the feel I get in my gut.
Well, fair enough.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for the Duke review of Gaia Project. Sean gives it a 4, and Alex gives it a did not participate. Whoops.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out Dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
Hey, heading over to the Duke's Quadruple Take now. We got 2 games that I have never played, because this happened just at the tail end of my trip. The episodes after this I had returned from, so I'll be able to contribute a little bit more going forward. But we'll start with episode 139, Mech Yourself Before You Wreck Your Future, with the game Anachrony. Sean, you gave this one a 3. You said a spectacular theme. You were in gaga about this theme, but the game itself was too fiddly and just overcomplicated. Nick, who was co-hosting with you that day, gave it a 4. Said that the theme served as a multiplier for him. It was enough to bring the game up to a 4, even though he acknowledged some of the other issues present. He thought it was enjoyable enough to get to a 4. Wanted to have it available to him in some form or fashion. Sean, where do you stand on this one now?
So I'm going to keep it at a 3, Alex. And again, a 3 is game is okay, not exciting, will play in the right situation. This is a game that, man, that theme is so cool. It's this time travel theme. It's a worker placement, resource management game, and you can send stuff from yourself in the future back to yourself on the current turn. You just have to make sure that you, in the future, you Bill and Ted it so that you produce it to be able to send it back. Otherwise, it causes these time paradoxes, which are potentially negative points. But then when you really think about it, isn't that just a loan? You're just taking a loan, and that's really all it is, but you just have a different theme tied to it. Yeah, there's a lot to like about this game, and I know it's incredibly popular with a lot of people. And for whatever reason, I just was not crazy about this game. It's not a 2. I'd play it again in an ideal circumstance. Maybe I've got a nice drink with me. Someone's giving me a back and neck massage while I'm playing it. I'll do it in that situation.
All right, fair enough. Guild Thought's fairly limited on this one. BJ says, Anachrony was the biggest brain melt experience that I had in 2017. Love the game, still love the theme, and I'd love to play it again. So that's Anachrony, stays at a 3 for Sean. Next over to one I am very curious about. Very, very curious about. Star Wars Destiny from episode 140, I know. Sean, you gave this one a 5, but said this had a chance to become a 6 based on future expansions, play, etc. Rob from Blue Peg Pink Peg said, love, love, love this game. It scratched his magic itch. Sean, where are you at with this one?
So this is tough, Alex, because this game is excellent. It is collectible. This is when Fantasy Flight took a step away from their LCG format, right? That particular type of marketing, and said, hey, we're going to do a CCG, or I guess a collectible card and dice game. And that makes it difficult. I have not kept up with the last set. I purchased the first couple sets, couple boxes for each. There's something exhilarating about opening boosters. Raquel, Mariah, and Chewie, all of us, we would just kind of open up the packs together, get excited when one of us opened up, one of the legendaries. And it's a theme that I love, and it is a fantastic gameplay. The gameplay is just so good. It is these quick little turns, these quick little back and forth interactions that are very, and sometimes incremental, but other times just it's great. It is a fantastic game. real quick, before I go into my thoughts, let's read something by Scott Sexton. He says, Star Wars Destiny is a game I've fallen for thanks only to the sealed and draft formats of the game. Without those, the blind buy legendary card chasing would have been a deal breaker for me. The drafting format in particular takes Destiny from being a very good game to one of my favorites. I will never turn down a draft tournament, and I have a blast slowly opening packs with my kids as a part of our in-house draft sessions. My love for Destiny is only helped by how much my kids have enjoyed it too. Destiny has made for a great deal of family bonding in my house. No matter how good I think this game is, though, it is an unapologetic money sink and isn't one for the faint of heart without the cash to burn on such frivolities. I totally get that this isn't a game for most folks, but I'm crushing on it hard and will be for years to come. Solid Ducal 5+ for me. Now, let's go to the other end of it. Our buddy Nick, who was primarily the guy I was playing with here in Albuquerque, he says, I took a bath on this one, got bit by the CCG bug of old, and threw in. I can't say I've seen the game on the table since I sold all my cards at a 50% loss. A combination of the CCG format instead of LCG, extreme shortage of supply in the beginning, and lack of players makes me have to give the game, for meta reasons, a Ducal 2. Hashtag Unleash the 2. Now for the good, mechanically, once you sit down to play the game, it itself is a 4 for me. Okay, so what I do is I have enough of a collection that I'm able to put together. I have 4 solid decks, and I can play it casually. This is a game I would have loved to play competitively, but we just don't have the environment for it here. We don't have the play groups here for it. Like Scott was saying, I'm very interested to try this in the sealed and draft formats. A lot of times, that's how I preferred to play Magic. I used to love drafting Magic, and there'll be times every now and then, well, it's actually been about a year since I've done it, but I'd even just draft online, play Magic drafts online on Magic the Gathering Online. I like those formats in general, and I have to imagine they sound pretty cool in Destiny. So I'm going to keep it at a 5 for now, which is a great game. We'll rarely turn down a play of it. I need to try this sealed and draft format. It may be that I have to kind of shell out for the stuff and I just keep the stuff, and I'll have players that want to play it. Like I got Nick into it and I got my buddy Ellie into it. But he lives in Phoenix, so that makes things difficult. The gameplay is really solid. This would be in my top 4 of LCG slash CCGs. If I were really thinking about it. It is the gameplay is excellent, and it makes me sad that I don't have the ability to play with other players on a regular basis for this game, because it is really fantastic. It really truly is. But I need to give that drafting or sealed deck format a try for sure.
I've been intrigued to try this, sort of, but it has not come up. It has not been enough of an intrigue to go out of my way to play.
Sure. I think you would like the gameplay. I think if you and I sat down and I'm like, here's this deck, here's a general guideline of how to play it, let's play. I think you'd like it. But you don't like deck construction.
I liked Android Netrunner in that context, here's a deck already ready to go, give it a try. I enjoyed it, but yeah, deck construction's not a thing for me generally. So, oh well. Cool. Yeah. So that's one other thought on this one from BJ. BJ says, Star Wars Destiny interested me enough to demo it at PAX South 2017. I also enjoyed following a couple of guys from my playgroup up the ladder at the Gen Con 50 tourney. I liked what I demoed, and I like watching people play, but it has never interested me enough to do more than buy the base game. Sure. And I think that has proven to be true for a lot of folks. So, very good. That is Star Wars Destiny. Sean takes that one from a 5 and moves it. Nope, just kidding. Keeps it right there at a 5. All right, before we go, a discussion topic. Stolen, I don't remember where I saw this. I think I saw it in another thread on BGG and then posted it in our guild. But it got a significant response in the guild, Sean. And it's to this concept of what should we be calling in this hobby games that we have played, that we've bought but have not played, that have remained in shrink, whatever else. The term on this show that we've used forever has been shelf of shame. But why look so negatively at it, Sean? Is it really a shelf of shame, or is it a shelf of opportunity? That's how I framed it initially. We got plenty of other suggestions, but we'll start off with you, Sean. First of all, how big is your shelf of shame or opportunity right now? And why? What should we call this? What should we call it? Should it be shelf of shame?
So it's about 35, and it usually hovers around there. Some periods more than others. It just kind of depends. And I feel like I take an active effort to try and bring that number down. And I also feel like in a lot of ways I have taken more advantage of Empire Board Game Library and purchased fewer games knowing that Empire has them available, which is really cool. And then certainly if a game is good enough, I'm like, okay, I absolutely need to buy this versus game's pretty good, but I don't need it. I mean, for the most part, we talk about our fours, our games that need to be in the duchy, and I don't have room in my collection for fours necessarily. So I'm okay calling it a shelf of shame because it's not that it's the game that is shameful. It is me that is shameful for not properly keeping things together and in such a way that I don't know. I have more games than I can play that are opened and already played, let alone games that are unpunched or still sealed or whatever. But there's that element of, oh man, what if this game goes out of print? Oh man, what if, this particular print run sells out? I better get this game now while I can.
There's some inherent, I don't know if shame is the right word, but there's some inherent embarrassment sometimes in the hobby. In that I remember when I was moving out of my apartment in Albuquerque, just how many, and I don't have that big of a collection, but just how many boxes it took to pack all of my board games into boxes compared to my other stuff. There was like 50% board games, 50% my stuff. It was somewhere in that ratio. It was close. And again, I have a small shelf's worth back here. That's it. I don't have a ton. And even so, and I remember apologizing for it. I remember with my mom packing up, I was like, sorry we have so many of these. My bad. And she was like, no, it's a hobby. It's something you love. It's okay. It's okay to have a collection of something. It's okay to have a library of something. And I think the implication of this kind of a shelf, of all these games you've bought but haven't played, is not only do I have this huge collection, but I'm not even doing anything with this. So I get where that term shame comes from, but I also get why some people might prefer a different spin on it, because I think you should have pride in your hobbies, especially this one. I think this is an amazing hobby to be a part of. I say that because my livelihood depends on it, Sean.
Sure does.
It sure does. So I get the desire for optimism. I also think there's a good distinction that was made by a number of people on here. And I'll point to, let's see, your mama. Your mama points out, for the first 3 months, they are on the shelf of opportunity. After that, they are on the shelf of shame. According to BGG, I have 171 games. If I don't count the expansions, promo cards, or games on my trade list, it's more like 100. And when I exclude games I only play with kids, I have about 80 games. That being said, I have one game of old school Clue that I have not played. I can't wait to get new games to the table, so my new games get played, and we usually try to play games 2 to 4 times before moving on to a new one. They don't hit the table again 2 years after the initial plays. They go on the trade shelf. As I hit the 80-100 game mark, I am finding that this is a good number for me, if not a little too big, and I have too many games I want to play, but not enough time to play them. That is always, always, always the dilemma. But what do you think about this time frame, Sean? Does how long a game has been sitting on that change how you view it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, how much of a grace period do you give yourself?
Yeah, I think 3 months is pretty generous. I think that's probably about the right amount of time. Because, I mentioned earlier when we did this third Gamers Garage sale, I had some things that were in shrink that I'm just like, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to play this. Let's not pretend. Let's just get rid of it. And they'd been there for a while. Whereas if it was a game that I just picked up a month ago, all right, I'll give it some time. So yeah, I think making that distinction is a pretty decent idea, and I'm in support of that. I mean, the reality is, given your particular schedule, your life demands, family demands, work demands, etc., and also what people you have available to play things with, it definitely limits you. Like, for example, I really want to buy Twilight Imperium 4, Alex, but I don't think I need to. I don't think it's going to get played here at the Duchy right now. And I have there are plenty of people in our play group that own it. Empire has a copy, so I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think I need to get it, and it would just sit on that shelf of shame for a while. And I think it also has to do with to what extent you're a collector, to what extent you're just buying games to play them. And I've definitely tried to scale back my collecting in the recent past. So yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, fair enough. Another distinction that got brought up was from the Mr. Sean, who says, the time between new and shameful, I think, depends on the amount of new and the circumstances of the acquired games. I get a lot of discounted and or free games that I'm interested in, but won't get played before some games I actively sought out and purchased. But there's a statute of limitations there, just not sure where it lands. Once the shame threshold has been passed, though, when should you just find a new home for the game? I'm a terrible color, so my shelves of shame, trademark, I don't know about that, are pretty full, but shouldn't there be a time where one says, nope, not going to get that one to the table? What do you think about that, Sean? That how you acquire a game also depends on which shelf it falls onto.
Yeah, I think when I acquired a bunch of games at like the Ding and Dent sales that Cool Stuff would have at Dice Tower Con, I was certainly a lot more willing to keep them around a little bit longer. But usually, if it's a game that I've actively sought out, like a particular title, I'm usually making more of an effort to get it to the table, I think. I still have one game, Dominaire, which is part of the Tempest line from AEG, which is, I think, an action selection area majority game that I picked up at the very first Dice Tower Con we went to 4 years ago now, almost 4 years ago. And it almost went, or no, it did go into a sale previously at the Gamers Garage sale, but then it didn't sell, and I kept it from going this last time because there's a part of me that just wants to get it to the table, which is weird, even though I haven't played it in almost 4 years, and I don't know when I'm going to play it, but for some reason it's managed to stay there, and I can't tell you why. I can't tell you what it is about that game that's kept it there.
Got it.
Certainly that's the exception, not the rule, I think, for me.
Okay.
What's your shelf of shame, Alex, look like right now, or shelf of opportunity?
My shelf of whatever. Let's see. I mean, folks can't see it because it's an audio show. I'm going to pick up my microphone and spin my head as I try and look what I have here still in Shrink. I have Azul still in Shrink, but I've played that one enough times where I don't feel so bad about that one. I have the second Puzzle Strike, the expansion that kind of doubles things. I have the Camel Cup Super Cup expansion, which I haven't gotten around to. I have my copy of Innovation, which I haven't gotten around to. All sorts of... Oh, what is that game? I can't see it. It's from Level 99. Pixel Tactics. I have a lot of Pixel Tactics stuff I haven't played. Feel a bit bad about that one. It's not too bad. I've played most everything on here. I haven't played Jiraku from our sponsor TMG. I played that one in Singapore, but haven't played my own personal copy. So I'd say there's a chunk of this that's shelf of shame material, but I don't think it's that bad. I think what's interesting is I keep kind of defaulting to shelf of shame, even though I don't necessarily feel shame about those in particular. I think just because my collection is so much more streamlined than yours, and maybe a lot of our listeners. Maybe that's the gist of it, that it doesn't feel that excessive. There's in this whole pile, this whole shelf, there's chunks of the shelf that might apply, that might fit. So yeah, there's some stuff on there, but it's certainly not overwhelming. And I am not particularly afraid to get rid of stuff, as folks saw from when I got rid of Arboretum. So I guess that's just how it goes, though, Sean. We had some other suggestions for names. I'm going to run some of these by you, Sean. You let me know how these hit you. Arthur Brooking came with Bookcases of Opportunity.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Sylvain Lacroix with the very literal Unplayed Games.
Okay.
All right. The Mr. Sean with the Cupboard of Undiscovered Delights.
All right, that's my favorite.
Cupboard of Undiscovered Delights. Joe Shaw simply says, mint condition. Yep, pretty good. Jesse Metcalf referenced Kathy of the Our Turn podcast, who calls it the game space of temporal insufficiency. That one might be my favorite. That's pretty good, because I think it's accurately describing the problem. Todd Kauk says dead inventory. Dead inventory.
So I do have a special category of games that are on my shelf of shame that Rory refers to as our quote-unquote retirement games, which I'm nowhere close to retiring.
Right.
But it's this idea that, like, when we both happen to have more time, and usually it's a bunch of, like, GMT games or whatever, that's going to happen, right? And I'm just like, why am I acquiring games for what will conservatively be, 30 years down the road, in theory, unless I win the lottery or something. Maybe that's what I should call them. My lottery games. Okay. When I have Monday RPGs, Tuesday GMT, Wednesday LCG, CCG games, Thursday, Friday dry Euros, and then Saturday, Sunday, thematic dungeon crawl, whatever.
Okay.
When that happens, so maybe there's the subcategory shelf of shame that's retirement games. Or
retirement games.
Lottery games. The wishful thinking lottery game shelf.
I like it. Ferdinand Cardboard Stacker Capitulo came with this kind of list of things. He said the original is Shelf of Shame, reserved for used games but never played. The Shelf of Greater Shame, opened, new but never played. And the Shelf of Greatest Shame, new sealed games. So some categories there. Other suggestions, Brent Mayer with Wasted Potential is the name of this. That's a little depressing. It's a little sad. I don't know about that one. John Snow with the more optimistic Insurance Against Bad Economic Times. I like that. I like that thought process. Though I don't know, I tend to think these are typically depreciating assets in a lot of cases, Sean.
Yeah, probably. Most cases.
In most cases. Not all cases. Like my copy of Zombicide that I sold for less than I should have.
Right.
Let's see. Oh, and of course, I think this is probably a decent enough way to wrap this up. The Name Father had a whole chunk of these, just listed them off as shelf loathing, low shelf esteem, no shelf discipline, a lack of shelf control, is thinking I'm ever going to play them, shelf deception. Something to think about. Indeed. So I think because it's just caught on so much, I'm going to probably keep calling it Shelf of Shame, but if I can get myself in a more positive mindset, Cupboard of Undiscovered Delights might be where I'll try and go when I'm feeling a little more whimsical about life. So that's where I settle, Sean, but it sounds like you're sticking with Shelf of Shame.
Yeah, for now.
For now. Very good. Well, that's going to do it for our discussion topic, but before we wrap things up, let's get to the honorable mentions, the names we didn't pick, but we're close to picking for this episode. Striker J came with Jedi Mind Trip. So, Jedi Mind Trick, except he's referencing Star Wars Destiny, referencing, I think with Anachrony, a trip through time, and Minds referencing the Minds and Gaia project, which I'm very familiar with. I use them all the time.
Boo. Boo to you, not boo to Striker J. That's a good name. Jonas suggested Days of Future Past, which, of course, is... well, wait, what is that a reference to? I know because there's the music... The music? Wow. Because I know there's the X-Men movie, right. Days of Future Past.
Which involves time travel.
Time travel. Well, yeah, I know it involves time travel. The title itself involves, Future Past.
Right.
How's that deal with anything else?
Gaia projects in the future, presumably.
Okay.
Or an alternate reality. Star Wars is in a long time ago. In a galaxy far, far away.
All right.
It works.
I'm just wondering. You put together the top 6 this week. I was just...
Oh, okay. Just throwing me right under the bus. I see how it goes.
I'm just asking, and you gave clarification. Thank you, Alex.
Anyway, that was from Jonas Resting Jeppesen. Ossian Gurr says Darth Later. I like that one. Almost picked that one. But that would have been not resisting the temptation to pick Star Wars names. So, Darth Later. Good one. I dig it.
And then Nick Hayes suggested Space Oddity. Yeah.
Todd Kauk with Spatial Successor, calling you, Sean, out for always referring to something as a spiritual successor to something, which, yeah, we do say a lot when it comes up. So, but that would have been a cool name, too. I did want to bring up one more name that wasn't part of the top 6, but I think captures what could have been, Sean, on this episode. Nicole Capri suggested A New Hope, and her explanation for this was, obviously goes with Star Wars, sure. Also a new help for your Shelf of Shame or opportunity getting to play games, but then hope for luck or to win your games, But then this part is a little heartbreaking in context. Hope that Alex might eventually like these longer games, Gaia Project Terra Mystica, or CCG's Star Wars Destiny. Well, Nicole, I'm very, very sorry. Very sorry.
A huge disappointment to our listeners, Alex.
And maybe in general, sometimes. I don't know. In any case, let's wrap this thing up, Sean.
Yeah, please, let's do that.
Sean needs a nap.
All right, well, that's going to do it for episode 174, Mother Earth, Father Time. Thanks again, Jesse Metcalf, for that awesome episode title suggestion. Until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And make sure you play games, Alex, because we really need you to do that.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on April 29th, 2018. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Tasty Minstrel Games, Arcane Wonders, and Game Toppers, LLC. You can check out TMG's games at PlayTMG.com, Arcane Wonders games at ArcaneWonders.com, and Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on.